Hi folks, welcome back to the shop. Today we're talking about these Makita 3/8 drive 10-piece metric and SAE impact socket sets. You can see they have a black oxide finish, heat treated alloy steel, they're laser etched, we'll talk about that in a minute, and they're 6-point sockets. Part number for the metric sockets is E01688. Part number for the SAE sockets is E01672. Now, a quick look at the back of the metric socket set. You can freeze frame this and see the sizes. You can see there's some skips in here on the metric sizes. They're 3/8 drive and they're 2 inches long. Quick look at the back of the SAE set. You can see the sizes you have and freeze frame that. And you can see here there's no skips all the way from 5/16 to 3/4 of an inch. And then it skips 13/16 before it goes to 7/8. You can see they're made in Taiwan. Now let's take a closer look at these socket sets. All right, we got both these socket sets out of their packaging. Let's take a closer look. Here's a look at the SAE set. You can see both of these come with a 3/8 drive for your sockets. It's for an impact. You can see they both have the torsion ring here in the center, what Makita calls ImpactXPS. So you can just take this out and pop it in your impact. Of course, it'll also work with your drill. Pop it right in there, tighten down the chuck. Now let's compare these socket sets real quick. You can see I've got the SAE on the bottom and the metric on the top. Both are 10-piece socket counts. One thing I like is they're laser etched, and you can read that above the fold of the socket holder. If you look at the previous model, which I have, it's why I bought this new set. So you can see a couple of differences here. You can put this on, and if you look here, you'll see that, like the 9/16, for example, you can easily read this socket, but you can't read these sockets in the holder. This one I've got raised up here. You can see the 9/16 in the center. You have to pick the socket up. It's not high contrast, so it's harder to see. So when this 9/16 is pushed down in the holder, you don't know exactly what socket you have there. You have to lift these up and check on them. So I like the fact that they've got this high contrast laser etching on the new sockets. So it would be really nice if the new sockets were both high contrast laser etched, but also engraved or etched into the steel like the old sockets. So the etching would last longer like the old sockets, but be high contrast and above this holder like the new ones. They've also added a 7/8 socket here as well. The previous model stopped at 3/4 of an inch. Otherwise, it's the same exact socket set. If you take a look at the metric, you can see the same thing here. Now, Makita has changed the colors for the metric, and I've noticed this with companies overseas. A lot of times they'll show metric as red, whereas in the United States, red is usually SAE. So they've switched the metric from red to gray. But if you look here, same thing on the 10mm socket. You have this high contrast laser etching for 10 mil on the new set, but the old set has 10 mil. It's just stamped or etched in here. It's not high contrast, so you can't really see it unless it's raised up. So that's something I really do like better about these new sets. And of course, this one also has an additional socket in it, a 21mm. So you get that as well, but it makes the set a little bit larger. Now, checking the measurements of the socket holders, you can see that the SAE comes in at 9 9/16. The metric socket holder comes in at 9 1/4 inches in length. You can see these sockets are 6-point sockets, and they're rounded on the corners. Relatively thin wall sockets as well. All right, a quick comparison of the sockets. You can see the old socket here on the bottom is laser etched or stamped with Makita and the size in the socket. Look at the new socket, you can see it's the high contrast laser etching of the size and the name and a reference to the steel type. If you look at the side here, we can see they both have the hole for the pendant in the socket. The sockets are pretty much identical with the exception of how they're marked. But I really like these sets because I like the holders. And I think it's nice to have a socket set that you can fit in your tool bag and have on you. So for example, you take this Vito bag here, the Tech MCT, and I can take these socket sets, I can just drop these in here. They fit in well together, right? And you can just take an inexpensive 3/8 drive ratchet, put that in your tool bag, and you should also have a 3/8 extension, at least, maybe a longer one if you need it. I can pop that right here on the side, and now I've got the ability to drive these sockets. Now, it's not a full socket set, but you got a lot of sockets here that work with your impact and your drill, and of course you can put the impact in the back of this MCT bag and have that with you at all times. You can drive with the ratchet, drive with the impact, or you could even drive these sockets with a screwdriver. You can see I have the Klein Tools 11-in-1 impact here, and I could just take this bit out, put the 3/8 drive on here, and now I could drive these sockets. So for example, if I grab one here, got a 1/2 inch socket there, now I can drive this socket, right? Or I can take it off this and put it on my impact. Now I can drive this 1/2 inch socket. Pop the socket off, grab your ratchet, pop it on there and drive the socket. So you have a lot of flexibility having this socket set in your bag at all times. So I think it's pretty handy. Again, not a full socket set, but something you have on you that can come in really handy when you need it. And I particularly like the way these sockets store in the bag. So these sockets you can see fit in here nicely. You can put them back to back in there. They're not beating around. I like these socket holders because they're nice and slim. They take up less space. And a flexible socket holder that just makes it easy to get the socket out, use it, put it back. I just like these socket holders. They're pretty flexible, as you can see here. They're malleable. If you put these sockets side by side or back to front, they're not in there, beating against each other all the time or rattling around or making noise. I think it's just a good way to store these sockets. And you can see here, compared to a traditional socket rail, they do a good job of being a little more compact and spacing the sockets, between each other. Very limited spacing between each socket, so it's a very tight socket rail and socket holder. So I think it really works well with the Vito bags. So very nice option here from Makita. Now Makita also makes a 1/4 inch socket set, and I've talked about these before in the tool patch loadout that I've done. I know folks really like these, but you can see what these look like sort of compared to the 3/8 drive. So you can take your pick as to which one you want to carry in your bag. I think the 3/8 set gives you a little more versatility, but of course the 1/4 inch set is a good option if you're trying to save space. So it's a quick look at those, and it's the same thing. They have the laser etching above the socket holder, which is really nice. And of course these both come with that same drive, but of course for 1/4 inch. So this is also a good option as well, though I think the 3/8 is a good way to go if you're trying to have more versatility. So just take your pick on which one you'd rather carry. So let's compare the 1/4 inch to the 3/8. You can see here real quick that they both start at 8-inch metric here, and they're the same all the way up to 13 millimeter. And of course then the 3/8 picks up at 14 and goes on up to 21 millimeter. The 1/4 inch of course picks up 7 mil and 6 mil. So it comes down to what size socket you think you're going to want to run. Here's a quick comparison of the 1/4 inch to the 3/8. You can see that they match up here at 5/16 and 3/8 all the way up to 9/16. And then of course you pick up at 5/8 and have 4 extra sockets up to 7/8 here on the 3/8 set. And then on the 1/4 inch set, of course, you get 1/4 inch socket and 3/16. A quick measurement of the 1/4 inch drive socket set, and you can see the SAE comes in at 5 1/16. The metric set comes in at 4 7/8. I'll have a link to all of these items in the description. So there you have it, just a quick look at Makita's 3/8 drive impact sockets. Let me know in the comments what you think of these. If you have a better option, I'd love to hear about it. Please remember to like and subscribe. Those actions help me to continue to bring content to you on this channel. And with that said, I'll see you in the next video.